Welcome to Mind Power Exercise. Open your mind to possibilities. Your reality is in your hands, so enjoy the exercise. Exercise 1. In order to realize the reality of the statement that you are the center of mind power, you must first enter into a realization of the existence of a great ocean of mind power itself. Do not pass over this lightly, for it is most important. You must begin to create a mental picture of the universe as a great ocean of living mind power, vibrating with life and force and power. Endeavor to make this mental picture so clear that you can see it with your mind's eye, and until it becomes a reality to you. Picture yourself as alone in the universe and surrounded on all sides with a vibrating, pulsating sea of energy or power. See that power is locked up in that ocean, and that the ocean exists everywhere. Shut out from your mental field all other persons, things, conditions. Imagine yourself alone in this great ocean of power. You must practice frequently upon this mental picture until you are able to visualize it distinctly. This does not mean that you have to actually see it, but you should be able to actually feel it inside of you. You will begin to understand just what I mean after you have practiced this a little. This great ocean of mind power must become real to you, and you must practice until it does so become. The importance of the above exercise may be understood when I tell you that it will be impossible for you to manifest more than a few moderate degrees of power until you are able to realize yourself as the real center of your universe. And it will be impossible for you to realize yourself as such a center until you realize the existence of the ocean of power itself. For how can you think of yourself as a center of power in an ocean of power until you realize the existence of the ocean itself? The universal ocean of mind power contains within itself all the mind power, the force, and the energy that there is in the universe. It is the source from which all forms of energy arise. It is filled with an infinite number of tiny centers of energy, of which you are one. And in the degree that you draw upon it for strength, so will you receive strength. By all means, endeavor to clearly visualize this great mind power ocean, for it is the source of all the force with which you are filled and which you hope to acquire. Enter into this great realization, friends, for it is the first step to power. Exercise 2. The second exercise, which will tend to increase your vibration as a center of power, is as follows. Picture yourself clearly as a center of power in a mentative ocean. While seeing the ocean on all sides of you, you must see yourself as the center of it. Do not be afraid of this idea, for it is based on the truth. The highest occult teachings informs us that the great mentative ocean has its center everywhere and its circumference nowhere. That is, that being infinite in space, there is no finite spot that is really its center, and yet, on the other hand, every point of activity may be called its center. Being extended in every direction infinitely, its circumference is non-existent. Therefore, you are most certainly justified in considering yourself as a center of the ocean of mind power. Each dynamic individual is such a center, and each has his world circling and revolving around him. Some have a small world and some have mighty ones. There are centers so mighty and exalted that the human mind cannot grasp their importance, but even the tiniest point of activity is a center in itself. So hesitate not, but begin to form a mental picture of yourself as the center of power. Practice this exercise until you can clearly feel yourself as the center of power. You must learn to think of yourself as a focal point of force in the great ocean of mind power. Just as the great body of electricity manifests itself in tiny points of activity, so does mind power express itself in you, who are a point of activity within itself. In urging you to perfect yourself in this realization, I would impress upon you the fact that, known to all advancing occultists, that in the measure of your realization of this mighty quality of the ego will be the measure of the power possessed by you. All of the strong men of our times and of all ages have had this realization, intuitively or instinctively, that is. Although they may not have known the philosophy or science of the matter, they have felt this sense of the power of the ego in themselves, which gave them the confidence to do things and the willpower and desire force to carry out their undertakings. It is this feeling of inherent strength that makes men strong and successful and positive. And this feeling and realization may be developed and unfolded within anyone, providing he once it sufficiently. By the exercise of your desire and will, you may build up this realization of power, and in the building up there will come to you a constantly increasing stream of desire and will, and the measure of your expression will be the measure of your impression from the source of all positive impression. Exercise 3. The third exercise consists in the realization of the nature of the power. This force, energy, or power with which you are being filled and which you are now attracting toward your center consists of the electrical manifestation of willpower and the magnetic manifestation of desire force. These two constitute the dual phases of the one force, mind power. And, therefore, you must begin to realize that these qualities are within you, in order that you may be able to express them, and thus gain the additional and increased power that comes to those who do express them. You must begin to realize that you have a will which is capable of impressing itself on the things, persons, and circumstances of your world, and you must begin to realize that you have a desire which attracts to you the things, people, and circumstances of your world, and which in fact draws to you the very material from which your world is made. When you realize this dual force within you, it will begin to express itself automatically. The act of realization causes the mental machinery to begin to work smoothly and effectively. Therefore, picture to yourself this dual force within you. See yourself as influencing and acting upon the world around you. See yourself as a power in the land. And also see yourself as an attracting force, drawing to you that which you need and want and require. Consciously and unconsciously, picture yourself as a dynamic individual. You are an individual because you are a center of power. You are dynamic because you possess the electric will and the magnetic desire, the twin poles of mind power. Carry with you this thought constantly and repeat it often to yourself, and you will find it a source of power. You will find the power pouring into you when you say or think it. When you feel weak, or when you feel the need of additional power, use this statement of power: I am dynamic. I am dynamic. I am dynamic. And when you say it or think it, you must picture to yourself just what you mean by that statement. Hence the importance of knowing just what is meant. Do not pass over this statement of power as unimportant, but try it in actual practice, and you will soon realize what a battery of power you have become. those around you will soon become aware of the new sense of power within you. Keep this statement of power in yourself. Do not invite the ridicule of those around you by telling them the source of your power. Do not bother about them. If they are individuals themselves, they will understand without being told. And if they are not, all the telling in the world would not make it clear to them. So hoe your own row and mind your own business, and let them do the same. No one can build up his individuality except from within oneself, and each must work out his own salvation and climb the ladder of attainment for himself. And the sooner that people learn this, the better will it be for all. Don't be a leaner or a leaning post. Don't lean on anyone else. And please don't let anyone lean on you. There's been too much of this foolish business about living other people's lives for them, or letting other people live your life for you. Each man or woman must grow into an individual by his or her own work in life. There is no such thing as a vicarious individuality. Don't be afraid to assert the I, to claim your rightful heritage and birthright, to be an individual and not a parasite. And don't be afraid to shake off and trim off the parasitic persons that have encumbered your own unfoldment towards individuality. Let the parasites take root in the earth just as you have done. Let them fasten their roots in the great body of strength and power instead of in the mental body of someone else. And let them stop their second-hand nourishment and learn to draw from the first source. This is the only way, and the lack of knowledge of it is filling the world with weaklings instead of strong individuals. Therefore, think of these things, hold them well in mind when you make your statement of power. I am dynamic. I am dynamic. I am dynamic. In considering the qualities that go to make up the person in whom dynamic mentation is likely to be strongly developed, I may mention the following. Number 1. Physical well-being. For there is a certain strength about a man or woman in strong, robust health that must be taken into consideration. It is true that some persons not physically well but unhealthy have exercised strong powers, but this was in spite of their lack of physical health, and owing to a strong will which allowed them to master even this obstacle. But, all else being equal, there is a power about a strong, healthy, vigorous person that makes itself felt. Number 2. Belief in one's self. For without this, no one manifests positivity. Believe in your own power and ability, and you impress others with the same belief. Confidence is contagious. Cultivate the I can and I will. Number 3. Poise. For the calm, well-poised man has an enormous advantage over one lacking these qualities. The man who meets any emergency without losing his head has something about him that makes him looked up to as a natural leader. He has one of the qualities of positivity. Cultivate the calm, masterful mood. Number 4, fearlessness. For fear is the most negative emotion in the being of man. Fearlessness is the most positive quality, just as fear is the most negative. Cultivate the I dare, I do. Number 5, concentration. For this one-pointedness focuses the willpower upon the object. Do one thing at a time and do it with all the power that there is in you. Number 6, fixity of purpose. For you must learn to know what you want to do and then stick to it until it is done. Cultivate the bulldog quality. It is needed. To those who recognize the need of the above-mentioned qualities but who lack them, I would recommend the careful study and determined application of the principles stated in the chapters of this book entitled Mental Architecture, Making Over Oneself, and Mind Building, respectively.